So we took an Uber across town, met up with y'all.
Yeah.
Back from your trip from Indiana.
I got the best welcome from Dave I could ever get.
Yeah. Lots of love.
My back.
Yeah. Lots of love. Did he wrap his legs around
you? It was almost like
a
a lap dance, yeah.
I was like, he was running toward me, I was running toward him, and I was like, oh crap, we've passed the line of committal.
Was it slow-mo? Did the world stop?
And I was like, he's not possibly going to jump on me, and he did.
Well, how did I miss that?
I don't know.
You were inside.
Okay.
Kind of confirming the reservation.
Or your brain did the right thing and blocked it.
Man. But anyways,
you loved it. You loved it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Bourbon Boys, the podcast where, we talk about bourbon. And if you're dialing into this one, you missed a pretty incredible episode 28 part. This is part.
I kind of want to take a shower when you said
that. I must have missed that one.
I'm not touching that one. No pun. So
yeah.
Jump in.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah,
Old Forester, right?
Yeah, you want to take over?
No, I don't want to take over. I'm just asking where we're at. Okay.
Wait a minute. I'll get there.
Okay.
So
hurry up.
So as part of our Urban Bourbon tour, in Louisville, we stopped at 5 distilleries. We stopped at Rabbit Hole, Old Forester, Peerless, Stitzel Weller, and Evan Williams. You just heard us talk about Rabbit Hole.
We did.
Mm-hmm. And this was, next one we're talking about is Old Forester.
Yeah.
Honestly, this Old Forester location is really built for tours. Yep. It's built for tourists. The experience is really well done. Mm-hmm. Gift shop leads to the tour, which ends in the gift shop, like all good rides do. Mm-hmm. But that's not where they produce all the Old Forester. It's a little bit further out into the out of the city. Mm-hmm. I thought the tour was really great. The tour guide was wonderful. I think her name is Barb.
You were correct.
Yeah, she was good.
Yep. Yeah, we tasted a lot. I'm a fan of Old Forester to start, so this was a fun one to see. Again, the tours are about hour and a half long, super detailed. Yeah. Partway through each tour, Deb's like, it's the same tour. It's the same process.
It's not the same tour, though.
And it is. I guess it's the same process. You've seen the same dining.
It's the same process, but it's not the same tour.
You start with it is totally, I agree with that. Yeah. I'm with you. It is cool.
And it ended in a very cool tasting room.
Yeah.
We got to have a private tasting because of the group size we had. Mm-hmm. And it was a blast.
It was good.
I had a really good time, and it was a great way to end the first day.
I would say if you've never been on a bourbon tour and you're going to Louisville, I would start with Old Forester.
I would agree.
Lots of infographics, lots of kind of just educational foundation as you're walking through there.
Like the experience,
the experience was just it was polished. It was done really well. Yeah. Now, that said, if it was not your first tour, for me, it was a little too polished.
It was very interactive. You got to burn a barrel.
I did. I got to actually burn a barrel.
Charred a barrel. What char?
But let's not be too over the top on that, because really all I did was push a button.
Somebody's got to push that button.
Somebody's got to push a button.
You stepped up. When you were called,
I was called.
You stepped up.
Yeah, I was kind of voluntold actually. So
yeah.
But I would agree with what Dave's saying. I think here's what I liked about it, though. It was a really good balance between being too polished and being... You still felt like you were getting a taste of the real thing, because the rickhouse component was pretty cool, and the way that you walked around it all the way from the top to the bottom, and they talked about the difference in temperature and how that all affects the taste of the bourbon.
Yep.
I think, it was a little kind of... I don't want to say museum-esque, because it wasn't that, but I just thought it was really well done.
Yeah, it was.
I thought it was really well done.
It was.
You guys agree that it would be a good place for somebody that's never been?
Oh, I totally agree. Because you think about all they covered. They talked about the process. They level set that, hey, it's the same mash bill going every barrel. Yep. The other factors are what changes it. We saw they covered the whole cooperage aspect of making a barrel.
Yep.
They charred it. They talked about toasting and charring. Talked about the rickhouse. Yeah, it was it's probably the most comprehensive, connect the dots, hit the key aspects.
I didn't realize that there was a toasting and charring. So I learned something on that one. I was like, I just figured that they just went straight to char.
Yeah.
I also think that what was cool about it is that even though it was a little bit, contrived's not the right word because I don't think it was totally contrived, but you actually felt like you were in an actual manufacturing facility because of the bottling. You had the rickhouse.
Yep.
Whereas if you compare it to some of the other distilleries, not going to say which ones, but it felt very Disney-like, which this did not feel that.
It did not feel that way at
you
all.
Actually felt like you were in a distillery.
Well, that's a good point because they were one of 3 of the 5 that we went to. 3 of them were functioning distilleries and tours.
Yep.
Right. So
and this felt functioning.
Yeah. But they weren't producing the Old Forester you're seeing on the shelves. They were producing that Block 6 special release.
Yeah, which will be an interesting thing to watch out from Old Forester because, as everybody knows, everything has a distinct flavor, and they break everything up after what they say 2 to 3 years of barreling. They say, okay, this is going to be in the 1910 line, 19 whatever it is.
Right.
So the rickhouse they have there it's not small, but small by mega bourbon producer standards.
Terms,
So there's no way those barrels are going to be blended into anything else. There will be a unique release of those.
Right. Yep.
Now the interesting thing was she referenced that the taste master, and I don't remember the lady's name she referenced, had tasted the 3-year or had been in the barrel for 3 years in the rickhouse, and she's like, doesn't seem to be ready. Now her tone didn't make it sound like it was on the verge of being ready, so I don't know what that means as far as like this is going to be some good stuff or people are going to line up and buy it simply because it's Block 6, it's Old Forester, Whiskey Row, whatever it is. But it will be a different line. There's no way they'll miss on that economic opportunity.
I agree.
It was one of my favorite tours. Just if you think about it from the whole experience, from coming in to the retail to the actual tour to the tasting to it was really well done and really well thought out.
If you were coming into Louisville and you had other things to do, but you had
that would
2
be
hours,
the one. That would be the one.
You drop that one in there. It's right in the middle of the city.
For sure.
Yeah,
easy to bang that one out.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tour guide was, you mentioned Barb earlier, super job.
She was amazing.
Super willing to take questions.
Yeah. Super informative.
Yeah, she was very, very helpful.
And I think they actually served, man.
Yes.
Marshmallows. Holy cow, I forgot.
I was looking at that right here.
So they did a marshmallow.
Let's not forget the marshmallows.
Yeah, it's like a bourbon infused marshmallow wrapped in caramel and then dipped in chocolate. It was
with sea salt on it.
There was some caramel in there somewhere.
Don't forget the sea salt.
Yeah. Gonna have to make some of those.
Good luck.
How hard can it be to soak a marshmallow?
Sarah bought about 18 bags. So
did she? Okay, we did too.
I think it's going to be in stocking stuffers.
Of the actual marshmallows.
Yeah.
I hope I'm a recipient of those.
I'll put a stocking out at your house.
Okay, thank you.
So talk about the tour.
So the tour was great. I mean, I think I will tell you what I liked about it. I mean, I don't necessarily see myself as like an expert on bourbon making. I'm still learning every time I go through the process. But what I really liked what they did were the infographics that actually made it super simple to understand. And I thought that was really great. I took a lot of photos of those infographics because it wasn't so much about looking at the equipment, but it was looking at like that they really pared it down to like the simplicity of the process and how it actually works, which I thought was really, really cool.
And did she reveal the mash bill? Some places would do it.
It's on the wall.
She did.
Was it on the wall?
Was it on the wall?
Yeah,
okay.
it was.
You got one of the ground.
One of those first rooms.
72, 18, 10.
Yeah.
Nice.
I do want to note, though, one of the 5 laws of drinking bourbon is that it can be drunk over ice. So I just want to bring that up.
Can be, doesn't it? Should be.
Yeah. Thank you, Alton.
So I'll tell you what. I mean, the tour, and again, I highly recommend it. Would do it again, with new folks, or just see it again, I guess. But Old Forester, it's kind of like looking back, like some of the tours made me really curious and informed about the bourbon they were making, and others informed me about the process. This one was more about the process than their product.
I agree with that.
That's interesting.
Yep.
I agree with that. The bottling line was, Derek geeked out.
That's pretty cool.
It was really cool.
Well, it's like Laverne and Shirley. I was just waiting for like a glove to come by.
There you go.
We could have. Just waited.
Who's Laverne and Shirley?
Showing our age. Yeah, here we go.
So
I like it.
Shirley.
Yeah, and we've got some
Squiggy?
clips from the Squiggy, Lenny and Squiggy.
Lenny and Squiggy.
Carmine.
Carmine. Oh my gosh.
Okay, let's get back to our demographic.
All right,
That's okay.
we're on
That's
Old
okay.
Forester. We're on Old Forester.
No. Well, I mean, we've got some clips from the tour. so we can listen to Barb tell us a little bit about the process, the rickhouse, and
did you actually interview her a little bit?
No, we had a great conversation after the tour.
Okay,
super, approachable, very very friendly. Okay. She loves her job. She's in a good place. Again, there weren't a lot of people working there, so
yeah.
And this is the visitor experience. This is not the. We drove on the way to the races. We drove past.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I don't know. We're not going to do that. We drove past where a lot of their production is done.
Okay,
because it had the enormous Old Forester bottle on the top of the building.
I didn't know if you brought out your ball taser and was going to interview her. So,
good Lord,
I keep that in the nightstand.
All right, guys, that's a different podcast.
Jeez,
how often do we have to talk about this?
Did you not see that thing? How those things?
All right, so let's listen to Barb, and we'll come back with a tasting.
Okay, please. Let's do that.
Break.
Oh, is it your first one, Kurt?
Kentucky. I've been to other distilleries.
Okay, but first bourbon distillery tour?
I wasn't invited on the last trip.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. We're getting into some deep issues right now, some deep-rooted issues. I'm really glad that there's bourbon at the end of this. Is there a counseling room? Absolutely. That's called the tasting room. The tasting room, there will be alcohol. The first thing I would say about our brand, Old Forester, is the fact that we are actually really, really old. It's not just a part of our logo or anything like that. It's definitely a part of our story and how we identify here. So Old Forester was established now 151 years ago. And 151 years ago, the whiskey industry in the United States was this lawless place, right? There were no Consumer Protection Acts just yet. The Pure Food and Drug Act hadn't happened. The TTB wasn't around. So nobody was restricting what was going into whiskey barrels or how those whiskey barrels were being sold to the individual consumer, meaning you could drink whiskey in the United States if you wanted to, but you would have been consuming that product at your own risk, right? Because nobody was watching what was going into it. And I do have to say, on the flip side, it was kind of an easier time to be in the whiskey industry because you could fake a whiskey product and sell it and make a whole lot of issues, especially considering that at the time, people in this country were consuming quite a bit of whiskey for medicinal reasons, right? That makes sense. And that, my friends, is where Old Forester actually got its start. So our founder, George Garvin Brown, he was born in 1846 down in Munfordville, Kentucky, but he actually moved up to the city of Louisville to pursue a career in the pharmaceutical industry. He worked for Chambers Drug Co. as a salesman for them, and he primarily sold medicinal bourbon. But as you can imagine, it was really difficult, nearly impossible to source a consistent quality product that was safe enough to sell his clients. So he decided to cut out the middleman, and he went into business for himself. He started buying barrels from 3 different distilleries around Kentucky, distilleries that he trusted. And then when he bought barrels from them, he started batching them together to create a new product. This new product, he wanted to be known around town for 2 things above all else, and those 2 things were consistency and quality, the 2 pillars on which this company were founded. So in 1870, he got this idea to start bottling this new product in hand-blown glass bottles. That was back before glass molds really existed. So that became the first bottled bourbon to ever be commercially sold, and that is how Old Forester got its start all those 50s. It's a part of the original Whiskey Row. And Whiskey Row, if you haven't heard that term yet, my locals might know it, it's Main Street today. But if you had walked down Main Street back in the early 1900s, you would have seen Whiskey Row at a high point. There would have been 89 fully operational distilling companies down here, which is crazy. The federal government realizes this. We kind of bail them out that year. In December of 29, they granted us a 100-day distiller's holiday where we could legally produce, and therefore tax, up to 300,000 gallons of bourbon, which put us in a really nice spot, considering that prohibition finally came to an end 4 years later, almost to the day on December 5, 1933, at which point we now have 300,000 gallons of a 4-year-old product, right? We're ready to hit the ground running with a mature whiskey to sell to the public, and that makes Old Forester the only brand to be sold continuously by the same family before, during, and after Prohibition. 151 years this company has been around. We are still owned by the Brown family today. We're a 51% family-owned company. The other 49% is publicly traded. It's actually George Garvin Brown's great-great-grandson, Campbell Brown. You will see a couple areas of distillation. First up, that's our copper doubler, so that's where the second distillation takes place for us. And then this is our column still, 44 feet tall, 24 inches wide, producing about 100,000 proof gallons of alcohol per year.
How much of the 4,500 gallons will be in the column still at one time? I mean, does it all go in, or does it just kind of trickle in slowly? To give you an idea, to drain the tank and distill the entire thing takes about 6 hours from start to finish. It is a slow drain into it. That's a great question though. Yeah. So it's kind of like a constant movement, if you will, until it hits containment tank. Yeah.
And what is the job of the spirit safe?
It's kind of an old school tradition. So they're right behind you. They were traditionally called try boxes because the back panel actually does open up and you would give it your first try. Nowadays, that's just a quality check thing. We're not actually drinking the low wine or the high wine, anything like that. Though some tuners will actually let you get into the try box and do that. So it just depends on how they do things. But really, it's display purposes anymore today. But it does actually show you the traveling of it. Yeah. What else we got? Other questions? Own and operate all of our own cooperages, and we make every single barrel for every single one of our products. Because for us, well, you have to think about it from the perspective of a whiskey maker, right? Because the barrel, it's not just this storage vessel for liquids, it's also a reaction vessel, right? It's an active living membrane that will transform whatever you put inside of it. But for bourbon specifically, it's going to give bourbon 100% of its color, all of that, and way over 50% of the flavor. I don't know who else has tried White Dog whiskey before, for scientific purposes only, right? Right? Yeah, you know, a couple times. But yeah, so if you ever tried White Dog, or it's illegal, you know, stuff or other, which we won't say in here, but it's really harsh and it's sulfurous. It's not this palatable product that you want to drink glass after glass of like bourbon. So it's pretty phenomenal to see how the wood is going to mellow those flavors out. It's going to filter out those sulfurous flavors that we don't want. And it's going to apply those notes of rich creosote that we do want. So and I'll kind of explain that process. It's usually going to take 29 to 31 staves. Those staves come to us from Brown-Forman cooperage. Before they hit the cooperage, there's a couple steps that I like to roll through. They're always white American oak trees. They're sourced from 13 different states, ranging from the Ozarks to Appalachia. Once we have the trees, we harvest from the first branch down. Anything from the first branch up, that's typically knotty wood that will sometimes end up in holes. And that's what we don't want. Char levels, it's a 22-second char. Give you an idea. That would be comparable to a level 2 or level 3 at a third party. About 3 to 5 gallons of actual bourbon will get soaked into the wood. That reaction is called absorption. You want it to happen because it's going to cue extraction as well, right? As it's getting soaked into the wood, it's going to extract out flavors that you don't want. The reason it doesn't leak is because of what our coopers do mostly, but also white American oak trees, the reason we choose those, there's an extra wall of cells called tyloses. Tyloses is this naturally occurring molecule that acts as a natural pore blocker. So the bourbon, it's free to permeate the layers of wood that I'm talking about. But once it hits those tyloses, it's going to kick in and typically stop the bourbon inside of the rickhouse to experience everything that's happening on the outside. And that's really what's going to age your whiskey for you. As it heats up outside, that heat will travel in through the rickhouse and it's going to force the wood of the barrels to slowly expand. And as that wood is expanding, keep in mind what's going on inside of the barrel, right? So inside of the barrel, you've got your ethanol molecules, you've got your water molecules bonded together to form whiskey. But if you think back to science class, liquid cannot exist without vapor above it, right? So even in my water bottle, I've got water, but I've also got water vapors trapped in there. So in the whiskey barrel, you've got ethanol, and you've got ethanol vapors trapped in there as well. So the ethanol vapors are volatile. And as it heats up and that wood starts to move and starts to move around with the heat, it's gonna force the liquid to disperse through the 3 layers of wood that we just saw made back in the cooperage. The toast layer, the red layer, and the char layer. And then during the colder months, the wood will settle back down into place. It's going to force the liquid to travel back through the 3 layers of wood. And that whole expansion and contraction is also going to cue 4 different chemical reactions. So you've got absorption, evaporation, extraction, and reaction. Reaction between the whiskey and the wood itself. So those 4 reactions, that's what's bringing you color and flavor and aroma season after season, year after year, as the wood expands and contracts. Our master taster, the one woman behind all of this show, her name is Jackie Zykin. She's been our master taster for about 6 or 7 years now. Definitely one of my bourbon heroes. So she's the one that kind of guides all of this. Yes.
And so we don't know what labels they are yet.
We don't know what labels they are yet. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, in here, you kind of have a marketing team dream, right? Something that's only made here at the distillery, but we don't really know what it's going to be. So it really just depends. You know, traditional rickhouses. Imagine 50,623 barrels. Imagine how vast of a space that is. It's such a large environment that micro-environments and microclimates will form. So, you know, a microenvironment could be the top of the warehouse where it's going to age a little bit hotter up there because that heat will rise. That's going to age totally different than a microenvironment that's down in the dark, damp corner of a rickhouse and never sees the light of day, that kind of thing. So she's able to determine that through that as well. Historical location that we're sitting in today, Whiskey Row. I will not be drinking at all during my tasting. I don't think it's professional to drink at the drop at all. So you'll never see me drink whiskey here. And I'm going to leave that choice up to you guys. There's no pressure to consume alcohol whatsoever. I couldn't care less. But if you guys aren't drinking, neither am I. So I'm your sober buddy today. No. Sit back, relax.
And feel free to pass it this way.
There's a volunteer already. So you can pass it out to this guy.
Always
Thanks for taking one for me. Honestly, thank you. Yes. But yeah, so I don't drink, no pressure to consume. There's also no pressure to like the product. If whiskey's not your thing or Old Forester's not your thing, that's okay. So if you want to sample a little bit and you're like, oh, I don't like it, just put it back down. That's totally fine. If you don't like the candy that's on your napkin, get out. The door's right there. They're so good. They are called Modjeskas. They're bourbon-soaked marshmallows dipped in caramel, dipped in chocolate, topped with bourbon smoked sea salt. Now we're in for it. They are nut-free, but they're not vegetarian products because it's a homemade marshmallow, so if you need something different. The first glass on your left, that's the one next to the logo, if you're struggling today, is our 1870 original batch.
This is 1870, you said?
1870 original batch.
What's the proof on that one?
90.
90, okay.
Georgia's proof. It's the only proof he wanted to sell whiskey at.
Okay.
It's kind of fun. 90 proof. So that's why I say the 1870, it's good if you're new to bourbon. It's also good if you're good at making cocktails at home. Like, throw that in with a Kentucky Mule, some ginger beer, some lime juice, make a highball with it, make a whiskey sour with it, like whatever floats your boat. But that's a great mixing bourbon as well as a bourbon you can drink neat or on the rocks. Now this one's gonna nose a bit differently, right? And notice, as your bourbon guide, I'm not telling you what you should smell and what you should taste, because I kind of hate when bourbon guides do that. Everyone's palate is totally unique. I'm going to get something different than you're going to get. The female palate is far more biologically developed than the male palate, sorry to tell you guys. So we're able to pick up on nuances that males can't. So I'm not going to tell you what you should smell. If you stick your nose in a glass and you're like, oh, I smell like chocolate covered Twinkies, but I can't possibly say it. Say it. Own it. Go for it. Or if you just want to say every single time it smells like bourbon, cool. Like you're starting somewhere. Like you're starting somewhere, and that's what matters. 1897 Bottled and Bond. It's our green label here. The second in the Whiskey Row series, 100 proof. What does Bottled and Bond mean? I'm glad you guys asked. So, Bottled and Bond was the first Consumer Protection Act to ever be passed in the United States. We are talking the Bottled and Bond Act, which regulated the safety of whiskey going into our bodies, predated the Pure Food and Drug Act. That did not happen until 1906. We didn't care about food and drugs going into our bodies back then. Just whiskey. That's what we wanted. We needed that to be safe for us. So the Bottled and Bond Act established 4 different rules that we had to follow if we wanted to keep making whiskey in this country. This was the beginning to the end of whiskey rectifying. Because Bottled and Bond, now it meant that your whiskey had to be bottled at 100 proof. It had to be aged for a minimum of 4 years. It had to be aged in a federally bonded. We stayed open during Prohibition, and we sold bourbon. Barrel strength bourbon in the 1920s was 115 proof. Remember why you would have been drinking bourbon legally during Prohibition?
Medicinal.
Now, the legal department won't let me say that this cures anything, but now you just know it. So 1920 Prohibition style. This is what you would have been
Made it to the Bourbon Trail, Louisville. So yes, stop number 2 for you guys. Stop number 1 for us is Old Forester. You guys hit Rabbit Hole area. This was an excellent tour. Good tasting. I didn't get any birthday beverage. I was kind of hoping to squeeze that in.
Yeah, you asked. They didn't. No go on the
shot. Worth a shot.
What was her name? I'm glad Kurt's here. He made it. Yeah. He's not in our group photo, but he made it. There's proof.
I'm here. I'm actually amazed to be here.
We're glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too. It's great to be invited.
Do I get to make a comment about? I mean, it's different with Kurt here, but I'm glad he's here. I am.
Glad he's here.
But it is day 1.
All right. So again, Barb totally on her game. Good stuff.
Loved
Lots
Barb.
to learn. You know, we all learned a little bit something new.
Yep.
On that tour, and you know, like I said, immersive in the experience.
Yep.
You were in the rickhouse.
Yep.
You were, you know, in the multi-day, 4-day mash cooking, distilling, fermenting rooms.
Yeah.
Yep.
All the different tanks into the distillation process. So
The other cool thing, real quick.
Yeah.
The rickhouse
had
really cool factoids.
yeah, on the racks.
You know, it's funny. I was just going to say that. I mean, I think whoever designed that space did a really
good job.
nice job.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of when you said the museum
nice job.
experience.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that to me. It's like you're right. I mean, they took advantage of every moment to
Tell a story.
to
Get it out
inform
there.
and educate again more about the process than the
But again, I think
product.
it was done in a way that's super understandable.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
right?
very.
They didn't get into like the detail, and that's what was the graphics that they did in the rickhouse were just really well done.
Yeah. The other thing on the rickhouse, again, we were talking about. We alluded to earlier that the barrels stored there are going to be noticeably different. That was a temperature controlled environment.
Yep.
Right.
Top to bottom.
Versus
Top to bottom, exactly.
Versus the bulk of theirs is, or the rest of it is not in a temperature controlled environment. So the heat, you know, the extremes are what's really pushing the flavors in and out. So that's, you know, that's why it's not going to be blended into those
right.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be a
great
good shop.
And to your point, it'll be interesting to see how that stuff turns out.
Yeah.
So what did we taste? Do you remember what we tried? We had the 86. Right,
We had the 86. We had the 1910.
I got the 19. We had the 1920.
1920.
What was the other one we had?
Was there a 97? Was that the bottled and bond?
Well, that was
There
the
was a
100.
bottle and bond. So that would be 100 proof.
That was 1897, all right?
Oh, the year 1897. We had one that was 86 proof, which I don't know if it had a year or not.
Is it the breakfast
I
bourbon?
don't think it did. That was the first one. There was an 86.
Yeah.
Yep.
The next one I think was a 90. I'm trying
So
to find
probably
the
would have been
photos.
the bottle
Yeah,
bond.
I didn't take any pictures at the tasting.
I did actually, but nothing was labeled, so I don't know.
But I ended up walking out with the 1910. I like the taste of that.
I think I bought the same.
The 1920 was the 115 proof. That was the hotter. That was probably my favorite. Had the similar to the rare breed. Had a nice complex flavor.
Yeah,
but
and
1910 was good. It was the 86. I didn't even realize they had the breakfast bourbon there.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, it was nice. It's a good light one for someone who's starting out. Great, you can't go wrong. And those aren't too expensive too. Those are in the 20s and $30 a bottle.
Yep.
You know, at most liquor stores, they're high volume. That's where they get that consistency. But tasting those with the marshmallows, you know, definitely a great experience. Didn't feel rushed, but towards the end, she was definitely like, "Okay, we got a group right behind you.
Gotta go.
Yeah,
Let's wrap this up."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the 1897 is bottled in bond.
Got it.
So it's 100 proof, which I thought was good.
And is that the year of the Bottled and Bond Act, which probably is easier to remember?
I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Probably that. Color of the label on that one was green.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, a great tour. Great tour guide. Definitely, you got an hour and a half, $20 to $30 to spend. You're going to taste, 4 really good bourbons. You'll learn a ton. You get to burn shit and eat marshmallows.
Well, and again, back to the gift shop.
And the gift shop.
Pretty strong gift shop.
Good
yeah.
gift shop. Yep.
Strong gift shop.
Lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys caught it, but when we were down there, the music being piped in, Foo Fighters,
That was kind of like, ooh.
intro to our podcast.
Our podcast.
But it's not really that song because we'd have to pay royalties.
It's near it.
So it's
near
really
our
close. But it's
interpretation
actually
of-
the Fee-Foders.
That's right.
Yeah, it's never,
So
never long.
1897 was Bottled and Bond Act.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend.
All right. Thanks, boys. Thanks for a great weekend.
Bourbon on.
Bourbon
Good
on.
time all around. Bourbon on.